Welcome to Peacevision. We are a portal for positive change. And today we're talking about a pretty serious subject, addiction. And with me is somebody that knows all about it and, more importantly, how we can get some help. So if you would, please welcome Ahmed. He's with the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. Ahmed, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Pleasure to be here.
So if you don't mind, can you tell our viewers a little bit about your organization's mission and what are you here to do?
So in Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation, we have about 16 sites around the nation. Our mission is that we are a force of healing and hope for individuals, families, and communities affected by addiction to alcohol and other drugs. So that was our mission. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, can you put it in perspective for us that maybe some people don't see it every day? How big of a deal is opioid addiction in our country right now, and how is it affecting people's lives?
So, the opioid epidemic really came into being, around 2012, and where we started to see a huge spike in numbers and people impacted by the epidemic, and the number of prescriptions that were being given to patients in the U.S. and the amount of opioids that were being consumed on a yearly basis really mushroomed. The opioid problem, though an issue, has been long-standing. It kind of came into social and conscious awareness, and when it started to impact people whom we typically did not think of as quote addicts, so people struggling with substance use problems. The stigma around heroin and opioid use is we generally tend to think of that it's a problem that people from a certain group, a certain socioeconomic class, certain educational level, and the association with the media and how we think about it just placed it in that context. But it started, in 2012 and 2013 to become everybody's problem, really, which is, contributed to us thinking about it in terms of it being a pandemic and so on. Opioid use destroys people's lives, and because opioids are highly addictive. Tolerance to opioids develops really quickly, which means that the human body requires more of the substance to achieve the desired effect and to stave off the withdrawal symptoms that people experience when the substance leaves their body. And that can happen pretty rapidly.
When you're talking about the withdrawal symptoms, I think from what I hear, that's one of the big barriers for people to actually get help. Have we been making any progress in terms of that whole progress and in terms of the protocol for what you do for these patients and how you help ease them off this drug?
Absolutely. It all has to do with how you think of addiction. So we consider addiction to be a chronic disease. Okay. So we treat people with addiction and going through withdrawal as patients. So we think about how can we best get them through this high-risk critical phase of the treatment, because it's just the initial phase of the recovery process. So the medications have come a long way, and we utilize buprenorphine. People commonly refer to it as Suboxone. This is its brand name, and we try and get people through that withdrawal process as painlessly and as safely as possible. Most people struggling with opioid addiction, they have this fear of withdrawal and the experience of it, because it is a very uncomfortable, very painful experience, which anybody who's has a substance use disorder with opioids has experienced some form of withdrawal throughout their exposure and their addiction. So we use buprenorphine to make sure that phase of the treatment is as smooth as possible, and that we have the capacity to engage people in long-term recovery.
Well, I would imagine that one of the biggest issues is just simply being able to get the help to the person in need. And if you're a family member, what advice would you give to somebody about, look, how do I get help for my sister, my brother, my relative? Any advice there?
Definitely seeking the help of a professional always helps. So calling a treatment center like the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation or an interventionist or someone who has a little bit more detailed knowledge around the recovery process and treatment, it helps a lot, because there is a lot of fear and anxiety that people experience around going to treatment. There's shame around it. There's fear that they're going to be uncomfortable, that they're going to experience pain, that they are going to be in an institution as such. And there's a lot of misconceptions around what happens in treatment. So having that knowledge and information and understanding really helps. Also having empathy and understanding for what the person is going through. Anybody who's struggling with an opioid addiction is living in misery. They're not happy about where they're at. They're not satisfied. They don't want to continue. They need help, but they sometimes fear the experience that help is going to put them in more than they dislike the situation that they're in the moment.
And then also, if you're looking, and there's a lot of different options out there, you being among them, what advice would you give to somebody about what to look for in a facility to know that you're bringing the person to the right place and it's the best match?
Yeah, definitely. You want to recognize that the person is, and the person's issue, that there's a holistic view that it addresses mental health issues, psychiatric issues, medical issues, and that there are qualified and licensed folks who work at that facility who utilize the science and the medications that are approved for the use of opioid use disorder. So medications such as buprenorphine and naltrexone, Vivitrol, and methadone, are all part of the package with treating OUD. So you want to verify that the facility that you're going to addresses all aspects of addiction, as opposed to trying to sell a quick fix for treatment. Be wary of any treatment center that says we have 100% recovery rates, or you will never use again, stuff like that. A little bit of research always helps.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your insight, Ahmed, with the Hazelden Betty Ford organization. We appreciate you for being here, and mostly we thank you for all the help that you're giving to people in such need. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure being here.